Raoul, you started your speech with highlighting the crisis time we have now. I think you'll be pleased to know that I'm a proud graduate of PDO Business School. 10 years back, or perhaps more than 10 years back, we had a similar time crisis, and I was sitting on the motivational FRD, focused result delivery team. So if you need a great motivational speaker, that's between brackets me, you know where to find me. I'll be there to support you, definitely. But let me start thanking Meethaq for granting me this opportunity to moderate this session with Raoul. Sleman, you really made me feel like a celebrity. Thank you very much. I started my day talking to some of the SMEs owners. I was trying to find out, verify, what is that they would like to know from you today. Indeed, not only I managed to note down some good questions that definitely I'll be sharing soon with you, but I'm so proud to learn about some beautiful businesses that were founded and managed by young Omanis. And it's just made me feel like if I can only swap position with you for a few minutes, I could certainly sign as many contracts as I can, but definitely I can't, can I? No.
We can try to arrange it.
Anyway, it's fair, but it's also fair to say that Raoul is very supportive, very committed to help Omanis. And in a way, he's known of being a people's person. So I would say you have Raoul today, you have Meethaq presenting some good business solutions to help us survive this critical time. Please continue knocking the doors and talk to people in today's session. Let's kick off the dialogue, Raoul. I think the first question would be like, during this, like you described, hard time and in light of continuous oil price decline, there are positive people out there. We call them like the wonderful positive experts. They still believe there are unlimited opportunities. Unlimited sky is for everybody, not only for big companies, for small companies as well. What do you think?
I think unlimited is a difficult word. I think I like to focus on radiating possibilities rather than downward cycles. We can all have a chat around the water cooler and talk about how low the oil prices are and what the impact will be on society, or we can start saying, well, what do we need to have in place? And I think those key critical ingredients are very much the same. It's just that there's more urgency, and I think I have no doubt that many ministries will be much more in listening mode in terms of what can we do to address simplification or other measures. My personal view is that budgets are going to be seriously constrained, but opportunity remains very, very significant. There's so much scope. The figures that Suleiman quoted remain very much the same. There'll be some project deferments. There'll be some shift to less complacency. There'll be more value for money. We've been there before. We've been in '86. We had an oil price collapse, which is very similar to today's. It's supply driven. So it will take a number of years to unwind. But it's amazing how technology, new opportunity, new ways of working enabled us to become stronger. And we are in PDO endowed with a portfolio which remains very robust. There are a number of projects, high technical cost ER projects that we will be deferring. But in most areas, we basically sat down with our main suppliers, main contractors, SMEs, and said, how do we achieve sustainability together? We've been in greater listening mode. The number of suggestions in terms of how we can remove waste, inefficiency, or otherwise have been significant. We've taken out $1 billion out of our near-term program without impacting activity levels, and also creating more value also for our partners because we've removed inefficiencies. So I feel very positive that the opportunity is there. We need to recognize that unless we work together, we will struggle to deliver those opportunities. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's a blessing in disguise. People are far more in listening mode. There's far greater urgency. And I think engagement such as this will enable us to drive business forward much more effectively.
Okay. So it's time for us to keep stretching our muscles and listen carefully to these opportunities, I would say. But 2 days back, I was reading on the media some companies, national and international companies, laying off perhaps hundreds of staff and not only laying off, but perhaps stopping the recruitment. What is PDO role in making things smoother or improve the situation?
So, first of all, it starts by recognizing that across the industry, there's a dramatic number of layoff programs in the United States, in Aberdeen, in Norway, in Malaysia. The level of retrenchment in the industry is very significant. There'll be many businesses that go belly under because they just will not be able to survive at these prices. In Oman, I think we will suffer the same challenge in terms of sustainability of some of the more complex activities. Some of the smaller operators will struggle. There's no doubt that across the board, everybody's going to be facing the same recessionary cost challenges. But if we look at our portfolio, our 2016 activity levels are as high, if not higher, than 2015. If oil prices reduce from where they are today, we'll continue to be able to sustain our program. So that's what I mean by robustness in our proposals. We're going to the board in 2 weeks' time, so maybe we should discuss after that if I remain as positive. But in general, the opportunity set remains very robust. Our whole program is essentially geared to making sure that sustainability is there for the long term. Our whole program is committed to ensuring that we will help as much as we can our SMEs, our LCCs, our super LCCs, and I'm confident we can achieve that. There will be some parts of our business that will have less activity, and PDO will work to redeploy those staff to other businesses. The recruitment will continue. Our tops, our technicians, our graduates, we will continue. Probably at a slightly lower level, but nevertheless still significant. We will obviously reduce expatriation in a number of areas, but less so to do with cost reductions, more to do with the funnel of talent that we are developing within the company. So I still feel that it's going to be tough and there will be layoffs. But in general, within our program, I'm very confident that we'll be able to sustain and grow in a number of areas and redeploy and upskill individuals that perhaps are losing opportunities elsewhere.
So continue to stay positive. I think one thing that Slimane mentioned, you mentioned as well, is the new discoveries and the great opportunities in gas and oil. I mean, you talked about billions. I can't remember the figure, but it seems there's a great opportunities there. If you tell us your outlook into the opportunities and the investment, perhaps focusing more on the SMEs side.
Yeah, I think across the supply chain, we're as good as we've ever been at any time in our history in terms of having a very strong exploration program. Last year we had the largest bookings for 20 years, and we've been drilling in that concession for the last 50 years. But nevertheless, new seismic, new drilling technologies enable us always to find the more subtle structures. So that portfolio has been very successful on the Upper Shuaiba, in particular, but in a number of areas, both oil and gas, has enabled us to identify robust, profitable opportunities. WRFM, Well Reservoir Facilities Management, has been a key ingredient to sweat the asset, make the most of what you have. Today we have some of the lowest downtimes in the business, very, very highly productive system uptimes that enables us to create more and more value from that supply chain. And lastly, on EOR, if you take Marmul, it's been producing for 30 years, it produces more now and in the last 2 or 3 years than it has in the last 30 years. Now you tell me how many other fields around the world can do that. Hawil has already paid back itself. And we were 2 years late, and we had cost increases. It was a very challenging project, and yet already paid back, fully delivering 60,000 barrels a day of incredible value. So that supply chain is strong. It enables us to go to the government and say we can grow. So our activity levels continue to be at very high levels, and that provides opportunities across the entire spectrum. Many of our projects obviously go to large contractors because it's capital-intensive programs, but throughout those individual projects, there are supply chain elements that enable huge opportunities for SMEs. We've opened a technology hub that enables people to understand what are our challenges, whether it's water treatment, whether it's production, artificial lift, or otherwise. We're constantly farming out smaller scopes to small entities which we incubate to provide a local proposition. One example is we used to have equipment repairs, pumps, valves, put on a truck and shipped to Jebel Ali. Today we've opened 2 successful workshops in the interior. We're opening a 3rd one as we speak. They've been open for about 2 years. They've saved us $2 to $3 million per workshop, 5 years of waiting time for the 150 pieces of equipment that we've maintained. So a huge value proposition which addresses the business needs. It's about providing local capability, local supply services to address local needs, local requirements, and then gradually shifting the capability to deliver external opportunities. So some of the SMEs we've established in subsurface modeling, for instance, in logging, are now established players outside the region. And that, is, for me, is one of those definitions of success, that it's not just about delivering internal capability, but actually tradable, exportable capacity, products and services. And, you know, slowly, but we're delivering on that front.
I think we should not forget that really under your management, there have been good success stories. I was reading 2 days back about 5 things PDO are so proud to achieve. I can't remember all the 5 things, but I remember Intisar Al-Kindi might be like the best woman in oil and gas, perhaps, inshallah.
Haifa yesterday won the CFO award in Dubai. Intisar, I expect, is in the short 3 list for the Woman of the Year at ADIPEC, and I suspect she'll win. So it's a great story.
Now, this is me speaks on behalf of some of the SMEs, but I'm also running an inspection company, API, tubular inspection company. We find it a big challenge when we are asked to reduce the value of the contracts that we currently have. But in the same time, we also, the payment modes, it's like extended now from 45 days to 90 days. And for SMEs, it's really hard to survive. I mean, I invited an expert, economic expert from the UK 2 weeks back. And he was telling me when he used to work with the economic department, during similar situation, the government, the UK government, asked them to pay SMEs in 5 days. But today, here in Oman, we are paid in 90 days, and not only that, but reduce the service amount, which it's such a situation that we might like close the businesses.
So in February of this year, I called in 150 of our main contractors. And you could have felt a pin drop, because they weren't quite sure what was going to be said and were we going to impose top-down reductions or otherwise. And my first comment was, tell us if you're having difficulties. And cash flow difficulties are obviously the principal ones. We target our payments in 30 days. There are some at 45 days. But in some areas, we've got incubation programs where we can keep on supplying until the sustainability. I mean, many of the LCCs were brought up in that environment. A lot of the super LCCs were very much funded up front, including the equipment, because that equipment would have resulted in very high cost of capital that they would have eventually charged us anyway. So there was a lose-lose in that position. So Haifa has been asked to put together an aging of claims and an aging of payments on time to understand not just how well we are at ensuring that our contractors get paid on time, but to also understand how their subcontractors, and very often SMEs, are receiving the same speed of cash flow payments. By mapping that out, we'll be able to identify areas where there's just underperformance or there's issues. So that's an area that we recognize. Cash flow management is so key, particularly for small entities.
But then is there any way that you can expand this to the other contractors to make it as a normal practice, at least during this time?
We're looking at that. It starts with, can I get the cash cost from government on time? And of course, therefore, follow through after that. But in general, it's something that we place close attention to. And we've asked our contract holders to make sure we understand what the cash flow difficulties, the cash burn or otherwise, of our SMEs is all about. There are many situations where we just advance payments quite regularly to help them through difficult patches.
The other point is, I don't know if we have any representative from Ministry of Manpower, but drivers, Omani drivers. It is a major challenge for most of the small companies. Is there any way that perhaps we can look into the policy during this time and we allow at least 20% for the drivers not to be Omanis? Because then if you don't have drivers, you can't do any work, and it has to be Omanis. And you have, well, I'm not against Omanization, by the way. I love Omanization. But it's a challenge.
It's a huge challenge for us in the field. Very often, we're unable to access a well to bring it back onto production or to optimize production if we're unable to secure the Omani driver. And so we've asked for dispensation for certain logistical activities. And it's a struggle. So that's an area that where industry needs to be worked together. But I think the best example is changing the approach from a top-down Omanization expectation, where Minister of Manpower and other entities rightly expect a growth in Omani talent across the company. But by imposing a top-down 30, 40, 50% target, while not meeting the industry requirements in terms of capability and skill development, it's proved very difficult. And over the years, you find that many companies have said, yes, we have the 30, 40%, but they're all drivers. There's been very little emphasis on addressing the core upskilling of that workforce. And so we've taken a very different approach. We've basically said, as an industry, whether you're an SME or an established contractor, what do you need? A welder, a carpenter, a pipe fitter, an electrician. What do you need? What do you need? We've accumulated that and established training programs with international certification to address those skill requirements. And there's a pull. We're no longer pushing. There's a pull. There's ownership. There's camaraderie. There's ownership by the CEOs because they need those skill sets. And equally for drivers or otherwise, we're trying to say, can we upskill that enormous resource from conventional drivers to HGVs or crane operators or otherwise, to again upskill that huge opportunity set, but allow some degrees of freedom which are driven by just business requirements.
Thank you. Shall we invite the floors for some questions from the audience?
Assalamu alaikum. Mohammed Al Saeed. Thank you very much, Raoul and Azza, for this session. My question straight away go to the point of payment. And my own observation, Raoul, is the payment. I agree with you in terms of aging, maturation of invoices. But the payment cycle doesn't start with the payment service entry, release, and the SAP. The payment cycle starts from my approval of my timesheet and approval of my milestone achievement, which is outside of Haifa's domain. It's very much a contract holder's domain. And that's a lot of pain happens there. And that's how we feel. I don't know what's your input on that. Thanks.
Two comments. First of all, it's a privilege to work with you, Mohammed, because you're a role model in actually driving the Omanization with the upskilling and the passion on how they deliver value to the business. We have to become far more efficient and effective how we manage that interface. So through our lean programs, that's an area that we've mapped out in terms of opportunity of identifying how we best train our contract holders to understand how we can be more efficient, how we simplify all sorts of processes, and I gave the example of what MOG and the other operators are doing with the industry registration process. How we introduce, for many SMEs that are looking for opportunities, simple one-stop shop establishments that say, look, this is the opportunity, these are the needs, this is how we can help you. If there are many of you seeking for it, then it's about a contest. If there are very few of you, this is how we can help you, because we need to establish a supply chain. So I agree with you that it's, you know, after the invoice, it's easier than before the invoice comes in place. And, you know, I would ask you to raise the constraints that you're experiencing on a day in, day out with our ICV team, because they're there to support you. We've set up a dedicated ICV directorate, which has two legs to it. One leg is operations. How are things going? What else should we be doing? How can we simplify systems? And the other leg is development, applied research, technology development, competitiveness, new systems, new ways of working. Two very separate legs and both need to integrate and get your feedback, what's working, what isn't, how can we do it better?
Raoul, good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Charles Shaw. I'm the CEO of a training company called Maharat. We are basically an SME business. And we work with a lot of the oil and gas as well as the non-oil and gas areas. The one area which I want to really stress, and thank you for bringing it up, is this thing of cash flow. You know, with us as SMEs, we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive. We don't just want to be a slave to our masters, we want partnerships. And I think particularly now, when we are, frankly, and Raoul used the word, in a recessionary position, these are the things that we need to look at. These are the things, and you know, never waste time in a crisis. Brilliant, Raoul. But you know, we've got to look at change. And I think now is the time for the likes of the large companies, both in oil and gas and non-oil and gas, to look at the SMEs, to look at us as partners, to say, yes, we want you to develop, we want you to survive, and we want you to thrive. But now, Raoul, yet again, has taken the leadership by saying that the cash collection is 30 to 45 days. Raoul, I just wish that so many contractors in the oil and gas world and the non-oil and gas world take that as an example. Because we as SMEs, when we are looking at our cash flow, we're looking at debtor days of 80 to 90 days. Now, that is completely unacceptable. It is not, you know, we want to grow, and all it is we are just now there as a slave, you know, trying to survive. We are not going to be able to thrive as SMEs until this partnership of cash, not only just in investment, but also in payment, comes to terms. So I would like to request, A, that people do follow Raoul's lead, and we look at debtor days of 30 to 45 days. I also seek for the ministries to do the same. Led by the Ministry of Finance, they should be saying to everybody that we've got to support the SMEs in reality, not let's just talk about it, in reality, let's really support the SMEs and make sure that the debtor days are no more than 30 to 45 days. Thank you.
No, I fully endorse that, and it's an area that there's no reason why we can't, as a collective industry, achieve that. If any of you are not receiving that timed payment response from PDO, drop me a line or drop Khalfan or Mohammed Al-Kharibi, you'll meet him soon. Tell us that it's not happening and we'll sort it out. There will be obviously disputes on certain payments that obviously take their due process and claim procedures, but on normal practice, any of you not receiving that response, please let me know.
But Raoul, this is not only for PDO. Do you see this an action that you could support the other?
I've no
doubt.
Can
you drive this?
I've no doubt the other industry operators are fully aligned with that and progress with that. I think beyond that, obviously, I can't comment on government practices and procedures. It's clearly an area of considerable discussion, as indeed moving to loans or funding outside of Oman, because you don't want to sap local liquidity. If you start funding from local banks, other contractors are going to have reduced overdraft opportunities. So it's important that in this time of difficulty, we go out to the external market in a planned, long-term strategic manner, and clearly try and resolve early payment, more efficiency in a number of public sectors.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Mohamed Massouli. I came to Oman 6 years ago. I built a harbor for Ministry of Agriculture and Fishery. So I recruited 270 people, built the harbor, and released them all. Then I set up an SME 3 years ago, and I spent 150,000 riyal of my own money to actually make sure I can help Oman in technology transfer. I want to really give two quotes. Mr. Raoul gave a very heartfelt presentation. And, you know, in the times of the Soviet Union, Khrushchev was saying, you know, his recessionary times, tighten the belt. And somebody in the crowd said, send belt. And also John F. Kennedy stood by Berlin and say, don't say what your country can do for you. What can you do for your country? Now, my observation here is the problem is productivity. I have dealt at ministers, under secretaries level. Everything is very organized, 9 to 5. They sign in, they sign out. Now, today, oil price is 48. As Raoul said, we had $10 a barrel as well. I'm a British Iranian, so we weathered the $10 as well. But in essence, the way I sort of see it is, can we increase the productivity by way of saying, your basic salary is 500, plus incentive, it could be 3,500. Why? Because today, the oil is 48. Oman did 1 million on 27th of July. That's 48 million. 48 million divided by 2,335,000 Omanis is $255 per head. Minimum salary is 325. Median salary is 1,525. So you have a multiple of 7 when your incoming with your outgoing does not meet. So I think we really, you know, it starts with ourselves as individuals. I still have high hopes because Oman is the only country in the region has Omanization, where Omanis have to work. The rest of the region, you know, Oman produces 968,000. Saudi produces 9 million. So in essence, really taking to the next stage as far as PDO is concerned, I think PDO is the business school for Oman and for the region. Every undersecretary I meet is ex-PDO. Now, Oman's oil comes from 7,000 meter, not from 3,000 meter of Iran and Saudi Arabia, and not from 1,000 meter of Iraq. And when I came here 6 years ago, they gave me a copy of the 5-year plan, and oil's gonna run out in 25 years. It's bituminous, it's very heavy oil, hence Oman's going tourism and fishery. That's why I came here to build a fishery harbor. So being an ex or part of the Shell, which plans every year, every day for 25 years hence, in terms of scenario planning, Raoul, please tell us what happened when the oil runs out. What's the plan there? Thank you.
Okay. Wow, so where do I start? I think we only have a few minutes, so we didn't move away from the Stone Age because we ran out of stones. And we're not going to move from the oil age because we run out of oil. Today, PDO has a portfolio of oil opportunities which are as significant as they were 20, 30 years ago. When I joined the industry 35 years ago, I was asked by my colleagues, why are you doing that? Because the oil is, you know, is running out. The reality is that we're an energy, but let me start by clarifying that we're not actually an oil and gas company, we're a water company. We produce 5 million barrels a day of water, and then the rest, a little bit of oil and gas. So we're already transitioned to a different challenge. As you've heard, last year we announced, earlier this year, we announced the largest solar steam project in the world, 1,000 gigawatts, 1,026 gigawatts. Enormous scope. And essentially PDO over the next 5, 10, 20, 25 years will transition to an energy company where oil perhaps becomes a very small component of that. In all those models, however slow or fast we move, we need productivity, we need technology, we need entrepreneurialism, we need a local supply chain, we need the key ingredients that we're talking about that are fundamental. Oman needs a lot more than that. The GCC has struggled to diversify its business model, and today the only exceptions are arguably Bahrain, which moved into the banking sector, and Dubai, which moved into real estate, tourism, and banking sector. But even today, if you look at Dubai, they import 3 for every 1 they export. So even that's not sustainable. But they've moved away from oil because they had no choice. I think what I referred to earlier as blessing in disguise is the current oil price crisis will enable Oman to address fundamental challenges in productivity, diversify from public sector to a change in mindset where it has to be more entrepreneurial, more risk-taking, but more opportunity for value creation on the private sector. It's the only way forward. There's no alternative. It's not sustainable. There's 50,000 new job seekers coming onto the market in the next few days, in the next few weeks, in the next few months. They will not be able to enter into government. Government cannot take them on board. It may have strategic thrust in a few areas, but overall, most will be facing the private sector. And that's an area that we just have to work together more effectively. So from a business continuity point of view, I'm very positive about PDO. We have the talent, the skill pools, the systems to enable us to transition to whatever industry, whether we have to go back to stones or to solar power. We'll be there and we'll be acting competitively. But we're working together with other sectors to address efficiencies and cultural mindset to move on to the private sector. For me, the fundamental enabler is upskilling, continuous focus on redeploying resources to upskill, and to do it, and to shift the mindset to one which is about graduation and high-level education to blue-collar worker opportunities. Singapore today, which is a role model for many countries, 70% of its resources go into vocational training. And that's where the opportunity is. And that's what we're going to be focusing on.
On behalf of Meethaq, Raoul would like to extend our thanks. I thoroughly enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.